Hi, welcome to the Mental Health and Yoga Summit. My name is Ashley Keener, and today I'm here with Denise. Denise, will you please introduce yourself to us?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Idelslu. Um, you want me to already tell everything about myself and what I do?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Hmm. So I am a yoga for mental health teacher. I started out as a regular yoga teacher, but for me, my passion has always been emotional well-being and mental health. So I went on to study more about psychology, somatics, yoga therapy, meditation, mindfulness. I did a whole lot of things. And in the end, I brought all of this together. And what I do now is I offer specialized classes, workshops, retreats, and teacher training programs on yoga for mental health.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. So for someone new to yoga, how would you recommend choosing a specific type that aligns with their physical and mental health goals?
Yeah, that can be challenging sometimes. There's so many different styles of yoga. Sometimes people, they try a class and they're like, well, I didn't think yoga was going to be like this, or actually I didn't like it. So what I can really recommend people who have never done yoga before is to, first of all, expect that maybe you'll have to try a few different classes because there are many different styles of yoga. And within the same style of yoga, each teacher will kind of teach it in their own way as well. So there's not only the style of yoga that you need to find that suits you most, but also a teacher that you feel that you can connect with, that you feel, yeah, that they're offering classes that are good and beneficial for you. So if you've tried one yoga class before and it wasn't really your thing, I would recommend you go try some other things as well. But of course, there are specific styles of yoga. And if you know a little bit more about what it is that you need or what you are looking for, then you can try one of those styles of yoga. So there's styles of yoga that are more dynamic, so more physical, kind of a little bit more like a workout. Those are styles like Vinyasa yoga, Ashtanga yoga, hot yoga as well. Anything that has like flow in the name. So those are styles of yoga that are a bit more dynamic. And these are styles of yoga that are great if you're also looking to have a bit of a workout, if you like moving. A lot of people, for example, that struggle with anxiety, that find it difficult to just be calm and
Yeah.
meditate, for example, they can really benefit from a style of yoga that is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more active, so that you can get all of that like tension out of your system and feel more relaxed afterwards.
Yeah.
Then there's styles of yoga that are more relaxing. So, and I think hatha yoga is kind of in between. And it depends a lot on the teacher, but hatha yoga is kind of the most classical form of yoga. Hatha meaning sun and moon. So it's a style of yoga that aims at balancing. So there we have yoga postures that are a little bit more dynamic, although it doesn't have to be dynamic. We sometimes say as well yang. So postures like standing positions or where you're engaging the muscles. And we also have postures that are more relaxing or yin. So if you're not quite sure what it is that you're looking for, I would say try hatha yoga. But so for styles of yoga that are mainly focused on letting go, relaxing, dropping into softness, those are practices like yin yoga and restorative yoga. So if you are someone that feels tired or you're feeling burnt out or overstimulated, maybe you're highly sensitive, then I would recommend try some of those more gentle forms of yoga, because they will give you that moment of resting, of connecting with yourself, letting go, and building your energy up again. So if you're new to yoga, ask yourself, what is it that I need most in this moment? Do I want to get some movement, or do I just feel like lying down on the floor basically and just melting into the floor? So those can be good questions to ask yourself so that you can figure out what style of yoga you might want to try first.
Yeah. So the ones where you melt into the floor are my favorite Like when we do corpse pose, that's my absolute favorite at the end of a workout, or not workout, but end of a yoga session,
Mhm.
just because I get to lay there and just like melt. And it's my favorite
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, you just get to be. I love that too. And, but for some people, that is actually a very challenging moment and a very challenging pose, especially people that have a lot of stress or anxiety. For them, that can be really, really challenging. So it's all about knowing yourself and what you enjoy most, and then finding that type of yoga that supports you most.
Yeah, I agree. So I do have anxiety. And when I first started doing yoga at the beginning of this year, I found that corpse pose was a little hard to do, like you were saying, just because my mind was constantly going. And my mind was constantly reeling through like the entire yoga practice, but I would remember to focus back on the practice. And then by the time we got to corpse pose, I was kind of a little more relaxed, but my mind would still go. But now that I've been doing it for so long, my brain just kind of shuts off by the end. So I'm able to completely relax and my anxiety is not as bad. It actually helps to relieve some of my anxiety too.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for sharing, because actually you're also pointing to something very important, and that is that what we need changes throughout our lives. And for example, I also started out doing very physical styles of yoga. I was very much into Ashtanga yoga for many years, so very strong physical practice. And for me, I always felt so balanced and stretched out and sweaty and relaxed after that. And now you cannot get me into any dynamic styles of yoga classes anymore. I just really don't like it anymore. Now I love just lying on the floor with as little and as gentle movements as possible most of the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
changes.
can I can relate to that because there's some days where I just don't want to move. And so I like make myself do the yoga and I make sure that it's one that's not too intense so that I can just relax at the same time as do my yoga. But on other days, I'm like, okay, I want to sweat today. I want my limbs to hurt. I want to stretch out. So like I have those days too.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, how do mindfulness practices within yoga contribute to improved mental well-being? And are there any
Mm.
specific techniques that you find the most effective?
Mm. Yeah. So yeah, mindfulness for those of you who haven't maybe heard about it so much, it's all about being here and now. And when we are struggling with our mental health, we're very often inside the mind. We're thinking about the past, worrying about the future, thinking, worrying. So a lot of things happening inside the mind. And so mindfulness is about um, not stopping the thoughts, but rather becoming aware of what we are actually thinking about. So it's about being present, being here and now. And in daily life, we could say being more mindful is about doing one thing at the same time and being very present with what we are doing. So in a way, it's kind of simplifying what's happening in the mind and in our lives at the same time. Um, but as a practice, being mindful or practicing mindfulness, it is about being here and now and being aware of our experience. And so many mindfulness practices will teach you how to observe what you're experiencing, like what sensations am I having right now? How does my body feel? How am I holding my body? Um, what am I feeling emotionally? Are there emotions and where do I feel them in my body? And also, what thoughts are going through my mind? Because it's the mind's nature to think, and we're basically thinking all the time, and that's just what the mind is like. And then whether you're having good thoughts or thoughts that are kind of negative and harming yourself, that depends on where we are at in our healing journey. But so often when we're having all those thoughts, we're not even aware of them. And so they are dictating so much of how we are feeling, how we feel about ourselves. And so all that we see is like maybe like, oh, I don't feel so confident, but we're not aware of the thoughts that we're thinking that are lowering our self-esteem and our confidence. So mindfulness is also about becoming aware of what thoughts are we thinking. And so mindfulness helps us to take that little step back, kind of like you're taking a little step back from yourself and you're observing what's happening inside your mind, what you're thinking rather than being inside your thoughts. So mindfulness teaches us how to kind of take a little bit of space from our experience so that we also create the opportunity for choice. So that rather than reacting, that we can consciously know, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, and now I choose how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to react? So mindfulness is a very important part of yoga and yoga practice, especially when we are not practicing yoga just for physical exercise, but we're including more this mindfulness approach of really connecting with the body, sensing the body, connecting with what we are feeling. And so it's about welcoming all of that without wanting to change anything. So it's really about just being present with what is there and holding it lovingly, just allowing it to be as it is.
Yeah.
And this is also very useful because so often in daily life, we actually try to run away from what we are actually feeling.
Yeah.
And we scroll on our phone, or we watch TV, or we drink alcohol, people smoke, so many different coping mechanisms to not have to deal with what is actually there. And that can also make yoga a little bit a confronting practice in the beginning, because we allow ourselves and we give ourselves that space to really connect with ourselves and to really feel what's there, so that we can digest it.
Yeah. So at the beginning sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say at the beginning of my yoga practice journey, it was really hard for me to concentrate because I stay at home right now. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I don't really have much to do with my day. So having that attention span that was so short because scrolling on social media or watching movies or reading, stuff like that, it was really hard for me to focus on the here and now and be mindful of my situation at the present time. So as I've progressed into my yoga practice, I've realized that I actually yearn for that mindfulness instead of like thinking that it's, oh, I got to do this more. Now it's more like, well, I can't wait to do that because I get time to spend in the present. And I feel like that's kind of huge for me because I'm ADHD as well. And my brain is constantly going. And that's like a relief for me because my brain just quiets down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to create a space where we can just be and be with ourselves. And yet the more we feel stressed or anxious or depressed, the more challenging that can be. So we also need to be very patient and kind with ourselves, because if you're having a really hard time and it feels too painful or threatening to just be with what is there, then again, it can be great to work more with the body and to go more towards those yoga practices that are a little bit more physical, where you can connect with the body, just feel the body, move some energy. And very gradually, like what you also shared was your experience, you'll be more and more drawn, and there will be more and more space to sit also with the deeper feelings and the deeper layers.
Yeah, I agree. I also suffer from depression too. And I can tell you honestly, in just the past 11 months since I've been doing yoga, my depression is almost like not there anymore. Like the dark thoughts, the spiraling thoughts that start to go negative and stuff like that. I've noticed that I can reframe those into more positive ones and not be so hard on myself. Because at the beginning I was really hard on myself because I couldn't pay attention. I wasn't doing the practice right. And I was just doing it messy. So I had to learn how to give myself a little bit of grace in there to do it the way that I do it and not be upset with myself and just be proud that I actually got it done. So it has also helped my depression a little bit too.
Yeah. And when I often when I've spoken to men, something that I hear sometimes is that they use a yoga practice in a way to control what they are feeling or to change how they are feeling. So they are often very strict with themselves, like, okay, I have to practice, I have to do this, and I have to feel good. And in my opinion, that's not the goal of yoga. For me, it's really when we're talking about it in the context of mental health, it's a self-care practice. So it's not there, like today I feel sad, but I'm not allowed to feel sad. So I'm going to do this practice that I know will move my energy and make me feel better.
Yeah.
So it's not about pushing, but it's about creating space. And sometimes that means that we just need to cry and we need to like lie in a restorative yoga pose, break down and allow that emotion to come out. And then that's the yoga for today.
Yeah.
So anything is welcome and it's really there to support you, whatever type of support you need. And just to pick up on what you said as well, I've noticed in my own life that when I feel really bad, like let's say, especially when I go through a breakup, you know, when there's like very intense emotions, then yoga practice like has really saved me just to be able to come onto the yoga mat. Usually for me, then it's restorative yoga or yin yoga, where I can just put some cushions and bolsters down. I'm just draping myself and yeah, just allowing emotion to flow and to connect with the body, to be gentle with myself. So when I feel really bad, my yoga practice has been really supportive for me. But I'm noticing that when and as well, when I feel really good, then I automatically want to practice yoga. But there's kind of the space in between where when I feel stressed or there's like a certain anxiety or tension, but I keep going in my life, kind of like leaving it there, but I keep going. And those are the moments where I don't want to practice and where I start disconnecting from my body as well. And then it always gets to kind of like a breaking point where my body's like, okay, now it's too much tension. Now we have to break down. And then I get back to yoga practice. So for me, it's also been a practice of acceptance that there are these cycles and just, yeah, getting to know yourself. And so when I have moments and I'm like, okay, no, I need to get this work done and I'm pushing through a bit, then I'm aware, okay, I'm in the cycle and I can choose. Do I feel like I need to get onto my mat to do some practice right now? Will that support me? Or do I just allow the cycle to play out, knowing that in a week or so, I'm going to love coming back onto my yoga mat? So it is about, yeah, also just being kind to yourself and always checking in and mostly developing awareness and to just, yeah, get to know yourself as well and your needs so that you can attend to those needs in a way that suits you best.
Yeah. So you reminded me when you said that like yoga is welcome to any type of emotion, including crying. I remember I was having a really bad day one day and I made myself do yoga even though I didn't want to. And I ended up crying the entire yoga practice, the entire time. But by the end of it, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
Because I actually sat in my feelings, I worked through them, and I just let the yoga flow. And I think it's only happened once, but I have cried a couple times, just not the entire time. But I really feel like it transformed me a little bit with my mental well-being and how I see yoga, because it really did help me tremendously, just to sit in my emotions and release them at the same time.
And I think it's so important because we do live in a culture where a lot of the time we have to keep it together. And a lot of problems are created because we don't create enough space to process things. Whether it's things that have happened or emotions that we are feeling, we just need to keep going. So we're kind of stuffing it down, thinking maybe we'll deal with it at a later time, or maybe we don't want to deal with it at all. But then it creates tension in the body, energy that gets stuck, physical pains start coming, mental health issues as well. So it's so important to, when there's something in our system, that we digest it, that we allow it to come out, that we clear it so that life energy can continue to flow. So important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. So, could you explain what somatics is and how it relates to the mind-body connection in the context of yoga?
Yeah. So somatics means relating to the body. So we could say that any practice that includes the body is a somatic practice. Um, for me, so from that perspective, we could say that yoga is also somatic practice. We're working with the body. But for me, it goes a little bit further than that. I would say that a somatic practice or somatics is about not only working with the body, but really feeling the body from the inside out. So rather than using the body as an instrument, like I'm going to do this now, or I'm going to do this yoga pose, about approaching the body as a feeling, sensing, and experiencing organ that has a lot of wisdom to teach us. So I feel like a lot of the time when we talk about the body and the mind, it's almost like we're talking about it like it's two different things,
Yeah.
right? Like the body and the mind, and there is a connection. But I feel that the body and the mind are not separate. They're like in constant communication, and our emotions, we are experiencing them perhaps cognitively as well, but it's also something that we are experiencing inside the body. And we can tell so much about a person just by looking at their bodies as well. We can tell how someone is feeling by facial expressions. Like if you have like a clenched jaw, then there is like a tension in your system somewhere. Clenched fists, often when people are angry, they're clenching their fists. Or like collapsed chest, often see this with people that are struggling with depression, that don't want to take up space, lack of confidence. And yeah, so our feelings and our mental states are directly they're also inside the body. They directly reflect each other. So when it comes to mental health, we can take a bottom up approach or a top down approach to working with our mental health. And so a top-down approach would be working cognitively. And so that's what we do in psychotherapy more. We're looking at, okay, what thoughts am I having? What beliefs are there? How can we change some of that to then also ease tension inside the body? So the idea is that, for example, with this idea of a person that is lacking confidence and making themselves small, by looking at things psychologically and working on those issues, that gradually also they will reflect that change in their personality and their physical posture. But the bottom-up approach would be working with the body, and by working with the body, changing how we feel and changing our cognitive patterns. So this is more what we would do in somatics and also in therapeutic yoga, where this person that is has a habituated posture of like tense shoulders, collapsed chest, that we would work with the body, including postures and movements that allow the chest to open, shoulder stretches, allow the shoulders to relax. And by changing that pattern of how we move and how we hold ourselves, that this person will gradually also become more confident. And of course, there is like this whole process of awareness of patterns that comes with that. And there's actually a researcher, Amy Cuddy, and she's done some research into this. So for those of you who are curious to learn a bit more from the scientific perspective, you can look up power posing. So she did a research study where she invited people to come for a job interview. And some people were asked in the waiting room to sit like this and then go into the job interview. And other people were giving a power pose, which would be something like standing with your legs open, like posing like this, right? And people that did a power pose, I don't remember how long, like half a minute or so before their interview, did much, much better than the people who sat in the waiting room like this.
Wow.
So there's more and more research also that points in that direction. But yeah, this is really cool because it's not coming from yoga, but it's pointing to the same thing. So somatic practice, working with the body, but really sensing and feeling the body from the inside out. as we are practicing. So that means in the context of yoga, that the focus, we're shifting the focus not to the external of like, I'm doing a beautiful yoga pose or the yoga pose has to look like this, but rather I am putting my body into position and I am exploring how does that feel? Does my body even want to be in this position? Or how can I make this posture more comfortable? Or as I'm doing a movement, how does my body want to move? So we are creating space for new information and new movement patterns rather than getting stuck in habituated ways of moving and feeling. So I don't know whether it can be interesting to maybe demonstrate a little exercise that we can do together to just feel that difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sitting on a chair and I'm assuming most of you are too. So let's just do something seated. It's not going to be a real yoga exercise or anything like that. But so just place your 2 feet on the floor and just sit comfortably. And we'll explore a little spinal movement where we're just arching the back and rounding the spine. And the first time as we're doing this, I will just guide you in a way that maybe we would do in a typical yoga class. So you can rest your hands on your knees. And then I invite you, as you take a deep breath in, to just arch your spine, to lift your chest. And if it feels comfortable, you can also look up. And then as you exhale, you can round your back, tucking the tailbone and dropping the chin to the chest. And just do that a few more times, flowing with your own breath, breathing and arching the spine. And breathing out, rounding the back. So this is a really nice stretch to release tension from the back. Good. And then you can come back to a neutral position. Now let's explore the same movements a little bit more somatically. So there's not one way of doing this, but I'm just going to guide you to find this movement yourself by cueing you in a different way. So rest your hands on your knees again. And I invite you to first feel your sit bones, the way that they're sitting, resting on the surface that you're sitting on. And then I invite you to just shift your pelvis a little bit, like tilting the pelvis a bit forward and a little bit backward so that you can feel how you are rolling over your sit bones. So just a very small movement. And without forcing anything, without pushing anything. And once you get a good sense or feeling of your sit bones, I invite you to broaden your awareness to what is happening in the rest of your body. Because everything is connected, the whole body is connected. So by moving your pelvis, other parts of your body are moving too. And this is also a good moment that if you are feeling that you're holding on anywhere or you're holding any tension anywhere, like in the shoulders maybe, to just relax that. And then I invite you to allow that movement to travel deeper along the spine. So maybe you want to make that movement a bit bigger. You're tilting your pelvis, pointing the tailbone back, and then you're probably noticing that you're also arching already into the lower back, and maybe you want to allow that movement to travel further up the spine. Maybe it goes all the way up into the head, maybe not yet. And then do the same in the other direction, tucking the tailbone, and then feel what happens in the lower back. And just allow that movement to gradually travel along the spine. And do this a few more times at your own pace. Dropping any idea of the movement and really just feeling and exploring what's there. Allowing the body to tell you what it wants to do and how it wants to move. Good. And then you can come back to center.
Something popped for me.
So, especially for people who have done this exercise before, and we see this a lot also in yoga classes. Like the yoga teacher will say, okay, now we do this exercise. And before the teacher tells them to start, they're already doing it. So the mind has already created an idea or already knows the exercise. So we are moving in a way that we are used to moving. And that can be great and it can release tension. It's nice to stretch. It's nice to move. But there is no new information necessarily coming into the system. And when we work in a more somatic way, we want those new neural patterns and to be created and explore new ways of movement, because it's from there that we create like insights or have insights, and that we can create change from the inside out. So that's a little bit the difference between a more classical approach to yoga to a more somatic approach to yoga.
I've noticed that my posture is different since doing it the somatic way. Like I feel more open. I don't feel like, because I'm one of those people that has low self-confidence. So I'm always like not taking up space. So I'm always like hunched over. But since doing that, like I feel myself sitting up straighter and taller, and I don't have as much tension in my shoulders either. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I think also what has been so important for me in switching to a more somatic approach is that I felt that when I was doing yoga in a more classical way, that for some reason I was more rigid in my body as I was practicing. And the somatic approach really is kind of like mindfulness, but in a physical way, where we're stepping back from doing and we're dropping into that space of just feeling. So our movements are more small and more soft. It's like it's more gentle on the body.
Yeah.
And so I'm noticing that it just brings much more softness into my system to practice in this way. And that has really helped me personally. I feel, much more relaxed in my body. Practicing this.
So in your experience, how does somatic movement within yoga contribute to the healing of both physical pain and mental health issues?
Yeah. So with regard to physical pain, I would say it's kind of what we talked about just now, that it's important that we connect with the body and that we don't use the body as an instrument to, let's say, do a certain stretch, but that we really tune into the body. And the body holds so much wisdom. It's just that we haven't really been taught how to listen to the body, I feel. And the more we learn how to connect with the body and how to listen to it, the more it will show us what it wants to do to release that tension, because the body knows, our whole system actually knows. And we see this in patterns like sighing, when there's been a buildup of tension, we just sigh naturally or we yawn. The body wants to regulate itself and it knows how to regulate itself. It's just that we need to give the body the space, and that we need to learn to reconnect with the body so that we learn how to listen and then to follow that wisdom and that intuition that the body has. So I think that is very important when it comes to physical pain. So definitely more this somatic approach to moving. And when it comes to mental health, I think somatic practice, yoga, so working with embodiment, has a very important place. I think first of all, because of the whole thing of coming out of the mind and reconnecting with the body. That so much of our mental health is happening, of course, in the mind. And it is often also a coping mechanism where we escape into our thoughts and we try to worry or ruminate about something to try to solve an issue. And there are reasons for that, and it has a bit of an evolutionary biological basis that I won't go into now, but there are reasons why we have these habits and why we ruminate. But so what happens when we're struggling with mental health is that we kind of get stuck in this pattern where when we're overthinking something or ruminating rather than coming to a solution, we just kind of get stuck there without having a solution. So it's so important to take a deep breath, get out of the mind, and come back into the body. And somatic practice, it helps us to connect with the body. Of course, also other practices like dance, taking a bath, anything that brings your awareness onto sensation is great. But practices like yoga, they have the ability as well to regulate the nervous system. So we can choose specific practices that help us regulate the nervous system in whatever way that we need. So, for example, people that feel stressed, they're finding themselves more in an aroused state or a sympathetic state of the nervous system. So then when we know how to use our yoga tools to relax and to come more to a balanced space again, then we can help our students or ourselves like that. Whereas people that are struggling with depression, often they find themselves more in a frozen state. So feeling lethargic, not having energy. So then if we know what practices that we can use to help to rest, but also to mobilize, then we can use those practices also to regulate. So for me, yoga for mental health is a practice of helping us to self-regulate and as yoga teachers to know how we can help our students to regulate, to co-regulate, and teach them also how to self-regulate. So that's kind of like the nervous system approach. But for me, yoga, we've spoken a lot also about emotions and feelings. It is also, creating that space to connect with ourselves and our needs. And I think people that are struggling with their mental health, especially also depression, are often disconnected from their needs. And so by creating space for self-reflection, for mindfulness, for connecting with ourselves in a kind and compassionate way, we create space to think about, okay, what is it that I need? And it can be like, first, very simple, what yoga practice do I need today? What yoga posture do I need today? But then it extrapolates to the rest of your life. And what do I need from my relationships today? What do I need from my work today? What do I want in my life? So I feel that yoga can really help us with that and to teach us how to better take care of ourselves. So I feel that yoga for mental health offers us amazing tools for self-care and to cope with challenging moments in our lives, but also that it changes things in our physiology and in our thought patterns, in our habits that have lasting changes. So it's not only coping tools that we're learning, but it's really a system that can help us to heal and to transform.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yoga really does help to, like I said earlier with my depression, it really helped me to not be afraid to sit with myself because that was like the biggest struggle for me was being alone with myself and being alone with the silence. And being able to do some of the yoga poses, it helped me to really open my mind a little bit more and be okay with the scary thoughts that were there or the negative self-talk that was there. And it really helped me to work through it and feel like I was safe to just feel those things and work through them.
Yeah, so you mentioned something very important, which is feeling safe. And I think this is so important when it comes to mental health, feeling safe inside yourself, inside your body. And I think it's a very common experience for people that have mental health problems because it is also one of the reasons why we escape into the mind and why we disconnect from the body, that we don't feel entirely safe in ourselves, in our environment, in life. And so getting onto your yoga mat and learning those tools for holding yourself, taking care of yourself, it gives you trust in yourself to take care of yourself and to hold that safe space for you. I think one of the things that I focus a lot in my work focus on a lot in my work is also heart-centered practices. I've noticed that for me, that has been true for me, but also a lot of people that I have worked with, that there's a lot of pain held in the heart. And that for some people, it means there are a lot of feelings and emotions there that need to be heard, held, digested, and released. But for some, it also means that the heart is shut and that they are living their lives without having that feeling of love or being disconnected from love. And love is like the most healing, most nurturing, and most life-affirming feeling and energy that we can have. And for me, it's very much also, it goes hand in hand with safety, or I think they're both very necessary for living fulfilling lives and to feel good. It's like feeling safe in ourselves, but also feeling connected in our hearts or feeling warmth in our hearts. And so with a lot of the work that I do, we focus on creating that warm, safe, and nurturing environment where we can bring energy into the heart and create feelings of warmth, compassion, and love in ourselves, but also between people, because the human connection is, of course, very important, because mental health is not only about you. We all exist in ourselves, but also in systems, in relationships to others. So it is always a work that is in here, but also in relation to others. And I think the heart is a beautiful bridge there.
I think the fact that you said that mental health is more than just us, it's in relationships and stuff, that not a lot of people think of that. Like they don't realize that their mental health does affect other people and other people can see it and they want to help, or they just think there's something wrong, but they don't want to dig too much deeper into it. But I really feel like your mental health and working on it in any way that you can with any help that you can get really will help the love that you get from your friends and family and with yourself. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, before we say goodbye, do you have any last minute advice or tips or anything for anyone watching?
So I would say if you are curious about yoga and mental health, or if you are struggling with your mental health, maybe you are in therapy at the moment or exploring different forms of therapy, whatever it is that you're doing, includes the body. There's many psychotherapists also today that are working in a more somatic way. But for me, I also struggled with my mental health. I struggled with depression, with anxiety. I've been through a burnout as well. And the thing that has always helped me most was really working with my body. So, whatever is available where you are, of course, there's a lot available online as well, but yeah, connect with the body, do something with the body, whether it's yoga, mindfulness, guided relaxation practices, something like somatic experiencing, which is also a guided process of connecting with your feelings. Just to explain very simply, breath work, do something that connects you with your body, would be my giveaway or my advice.
Well, thank you so much. And she actually has 2 different gifts for you guys. So there's one for yoga teachers and there's one for yoga practitioners. So don't forget to check that out.
Yeah. So one is a 30-minute somatic yoga class. So if you want to try a more somatic approach to yoga, you can try that class. But because I offer a lot of teacher training programs as well, I educate yoga teachers and mental health professionals. So that's why I have a separate little course for professionals who are interested in teaching or applying yoga for mental health techniques.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for inviting me, Ashley.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to connect and to talk.